Well, I do have something,
Oh,
but
okay.
we are totally. I mean, we are the wingingest of the wingingest of people.
Okay.
Because I mean, simply put, it's like, you know, um, I mean, but you know what's cool about it is that when we do what we do,
Mhm.
um, just because of our particular temperament, we
Uh-huh.
just we just create
Just yeah.
magic.
Well, I don't know if it's magic or not,
Oh,
but we create something. Throw it against the wall, see what sticks, and run with that one, huh?
I'm always, I'm always, when I say stuff like that, there's people that will. My dad used to have a discussion with me about that.
Uh-huh.
That like I said that, but it's not like I believe that. Like let's
Mhm.
say I said it
Mhm.
as within the joking structure, but
Sure.
some people will hear something that you say and think that
Mhm.
it's just that you literally believe that came out of your mouth, and so you have to
Mhm.
be careful with what you, because people will take that and they'll think that, oh, that's his limit, or that's that person's brain,
Mhm.
but it's all part of the joking and stuff. It's funny. Human beings are funny.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. There's no doubt about that. But you know what? Sometimes that's the fun part is figuring out where that limit is and just playing with it a little bit.
Yeah.
I because I like to find that soft spot and then exploit it. Once you find something that really bugs people, like I have a cousin back in North Carolina, and she is not real big on chocolate. So I somehow try to work chocolate into every discussion. And
Right.
she's just like, "Oh, well, you can have my helping." And I'm like, "Well, you find that one little spot, you just poke it all the time." So it's just fun with me. I don't know why. I just do. Did we go live? Yeah, we've been live for 2 minutes. I see the counter now.
No, not at all. Well, I know you see it as much. See, but I was thinking something different for, instead of revving up to sort of like an intro,
Uh-huh.
why not it be just continuation of the discussion that we were having backstage, which
Uh-huh.
was probably as interesting as anything we'll say during the course of our thing. But then
Well,
again, I'm kooky that way.
well, that's true, but the audience is going to be the final decider on what's interesting and what's good. But I I get where you're coming from because it's going to be my edit, so I'll play around with what have you.
Oh well, there you go. Well,
So
I'll tell you what. If they get pissed, they can always go to our refund department.
yes,
You know.
yes, exactly. Yeah, Helen does an excellent job.
Yeah.
Helen, wait, go just if you want a refund, go
Hel-
talk to Helen.
yeah.
So,
Well,
oh
so today's thing, and it's a funny thing. We've been titling things, or I've been titling things because I'm the one
uh-huh.
that sets up the
The
live.
live stream, yeah.
And what happens is that I'll just come up like I'm going to be honest with everybody, right? Because I feel that honesty is and I saw a video about honesty, and it's not good.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I saw a video about honesty, and it's not good because I was so there's people that are very upfront.
Mhm.
Everybody has something to hide. Everybody hides something. Everybody has a part, and it's not a darkness thing. It's
Mhm.
just that there's things that are private, and there's things that are public, and things you can
Right,
share. There's that tug and
right.
pull. And these are things that everybody knows, but I don't think rarely talk about. And I find that those things are interesting. That people they know instinctively, but they rarely talk about. Well, being too blunt and honest um, might not be such a good. Even with the most benign thing, you might think might cause a next war.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, big time. And that's where emotion comes into play because you can be cold and logical and just say exactly what's on your mind, but you're going to find yourself lonely very, very fast.
Yeah.
So, total honesty, it I don't know. I often thought that the motive of the person who says they're being honest is what it really comes down to.
Mhm.
Because if somebody asks for your opinion, it just depends on what hill you want to die on. You and I joke around with each other every once in a while, well, every once in a while, all the time. So if I tell you, when you say, hey man, I got some new boots, if I say those boots stink, I'm probably yanking your leg. I'm having fun with you. I'm messing with you. But try that with a spouse that goes and gets a haircut. You don't want to, there are certain things you don't want to mess with. And, so you do get into some less than honest discussions because, unless it's your intent to hurt somebody's feelings.
Yeah. Well, see, and then you also yeah, exactly. You're basically making an argument for there should be some sort of, and correct me if I'm wrong, there, and I think this is a given and an obvious thing, but there should be some level of self-editing during, because we all could basically say some horrific, and see, the knowledge of that, whenever there's a grouping of people and everybody's, how typically everybody, but amongst guys, buddies, there's always a little bit of that ball busting, as you know. And by the way, for people in the year 2099, ball busting was a term used for people just, I don't even, they might be talking Klingon by that time, so they might need an interpreter for this.
This is true. This is true. I mean, and well, never mind. I'm not even going to get into that subject, but okay. Yeah, there is a bunch of that. There's some play in the dozens, and there's, busting on your friends. But that's completely different than intentionally deciding you're going to hurt somebody's feelings, And you can do that with honesty.
Yes.
But yeah, there needs to be some censorship, if you can speak. There needs to be some self-censorship on both sides of that argument, because friends that you don't dare talk about some things to, because you don't dare talk about certain things because you know what's going to happen. They're not going to forget it. They're just going to trash you for the rest of your life about it. So if you don't want an honest opinion, don't ask for one.
Yeah, I mean, so in that kind of, and I agree, and in that grouping, when there's ball busting and stuff, I'm always one that will see. I've caught myself that I'll really throw out a zinger, and there's a few that throw out savage, annihilating, like napalm death, type of zingers. But the thing is that I try, I think in my mind, I'm not going far enough and stuff, but I very might well be going far enough from the vantage point of the person receiving the B-2 bomber over Shanghai, Yeah.
And there's a little bit of awareness involved in that too, because you can, it's okay to needle every once in a while and then read how the person is reacting to this. But if you just go for the throat immediately, hey, what'd you do last night? I was out with your mother, man. Well, now you're getting pretty intense all at once.
And there's also the thing where there's also the part where the human being, the person, you as the receiver of, say, criticism or a joke or a blast, there's also an amount of I guess you could call it maturity or something to that effect, where what's coming, what's incoming, and you just sort of, you can let it slide and just say, okay, whatever, whatever, and this and that.
Right.
So but I'm not gonna lie, as I started off with the thing, when I wrote the title, I just, in my mind, I thought, that song, I think that's the way I like to rock and roll. I think that's from AC/DC's album, Blow Up Your Radio or Blow Up Your Stereo? That's the way I want to rock and roll.
I want to rock and roll, yeah.
And that's the way. That came out in the 80s, and I bought that album, that record, and I put it on my record player. And boy, it was, a lot of people hate that album because it was a little bit more raw than their overproduced albums. And so But I loved it because I loved all those songs on that album, and it's Angus jumping out of like a TV or some sort of
Blow up your video.
blow up your video. There it is.
Yeah.
I bet you people on playback that are totally into AC/DC say, no, not blow up your radio, dumbass. But you're talking what, 25, 30 years or more?
Oh boy. Yeah. That came out in 88.
Yeah. So, I mean, but anyways, I that song popped into my head as I was working on preparing the show. And so I titled it as such without any knowledge of what we were going to talk about. But I have some doozies because that allowed me to spread. And that's how you write songs and you get creative. You don't have to have a plan. You just have to have you have to have a plan, but an initiation of an idea and let it take you where it goes. And you don't even know what's going on.
No, I don't know what's going on, but it doesn't matter simply because it's sometimes the journey is half the fun of getting there.
That's bingo. That's to me, that's it.
Linda and I were talking about this earlier today. In September, we're going to be taking a trip down to San Diego and we're going to drive. We're going to drive halfway the first day and go the other half the second day. Yeah, we could drive straight through. It's about a 14-hour trip, but I have never been that kind of person. I drive until I'm tired of driving. We'll stop, we'll get a room, and then we'll go the next day. I'm not in that big a hurry to either get there late at night when I'm too tired to do anything but fall into the bed. And I don't want to have to get up that early in the morning. See, if we drive down to Fresno, spend the night in Fresno, and then drive from Fresno to San Diego, we're good. That's about the halfway point. So, but I'm that way with conversation and what we do here on the Trampled Underfoot podcast. That's half of the fun of doing it, is figuring out where you're going to go next and figuring out where I'm going to go next and just see where the conversation takes us. So,
and by the way, we do go live every Tuesday, 9:30 Eastern and 6:30.
Yes.
Oh crap! Wait for the edit. And we, what messed me up when I actually focused on the fact that I have to get closer to the microphone.
Yeah.
That's what messed. Did I say mess me up or did I say a bad word?
No, you said messed.
Oh, okay, cool. Because in my mind, I was thinking something else totally.
But what I'm going to do is I'm going to play with the brains of the listeners and I'm going to put in a bleep sound over the word mess, just so you know.
Oh, perfect. So listen.
So they think you said something bad.
Actually, that's it. You know what? Before I do the little bit there, and by the way, we do have some fun stuff coming up, but it's just. We have fun just see it's what Mark said, the journey is freaking awesome. It's the journey. But I do want to say that I did think and I've been thinking, imagine a video where you do your whole whatever you do. It could be your woodworking, your creative, whatever YouTube sort of thing, but you bleep out every word that you could replace, that people would pick up on, thinking double mean, you say a sentence and then you just put the bleep in, even though you didn't say a bad word. It'll become the dirtiest video.
It's called unnecessary censorship, and it is a thing. It's on YouTube, it's in podcasts. There are people who have been doing it for a couple of years. It's called unnecessary censorship.
Oh, so I just reinvented the wheel.
You just invented a meme that's been
hilarious.
Out there. Yeah.
Well, in any event, we go live every Tuesday on the Trampled Underfoot podcast, and you can find us at trampledunderfootpodcast.com. We have we have all our past episodes there, so you could go ahead and press that Wayback Machine and catch those. We have a lot of interesting topics about history, music, current events, and just life, the universe, and everything. But we also have a Facebook page.
Yes, we do. And you can go to Facebook, look up Trampled Underfoot Podcast, and there we are. There are All of our, well, I won't say all of our episodes, but a good number of our past episodes are linked there. They're available through the Wayback Machine on our website, trampledunderfootpodcast.com. Sponsored by Steve Nealon over at Harneal Media, and also over here on the Mighty Mighty YouTubes. Look for Trampled Underfoot Podcast on the YouTubes.
Excellent. So listen, so that's the way I want to rock and roll from Blow Up Your Video or Blow Up My Video.
Blow up your video.
Great album. I wonder if I still have that record in the shed wrapped in plastic. So here's the thing. I have a list of the worst rock voices or vocalists according to the list that I'm looking at.
Okay.
And I'm wondering, do you have any in mind? And if they match this list, who do you think would be in number one position on the list?
Oh boy, there are some pretty bad vocalists out there. I don't know. I can tell you who I think is a bad vocalist anyway, but he's not. My number one is not a rock vocalist, although he did try to do a couple of rock songs in a movie, and that's Chris Christopherson. I just think he's a bad vocalist no matter what.
He's like a songwriter, singer-songwriter.
He's a very good songwriter. He's one of the best songwriters out there. He's just not a vocalist. The man just does not have a voice. I'm sorry.
How do you, in your mind, do you even have a category level? Okay, so let me just ask you. Well, I'll ask you that because in my mind, I have a certain order degree of musicianship genres within the vocal thing. But I won't say. I'll just see what you have to say, and then I'll throw down my 2 cents.
Okay. You were going to do on your list?
No,
no. Oh, okay. Well,
yeah.
I generally speaking don't really have a list of bad vocalists in my brain. There are certainly vocalists who I prefer, and those who are just kind of there, to me, because if you can carry a tune and you're not singing off key like Christopherson does really, really badly, but you can take a vocalist like Joe Cocker, who for his voice, for the style of music he does, he's excellent. But when he did You Are So Beautiful, that very end, when he's trying to sing nice and slow and gentle and hit a note and his voice just went all over the ding dong place, that's not a good vocalist. Okay. But you put Leave Your Hat On or A Little Help From My Friends, he's flipping dynamite.
This is the problem why we can't really, because I love Joe Cocker and his voice.
So do I. I'm just saying that was not a song for him. Now, he did that one song for An Officer and a Gentleman with, what's her name? Warren's. I can't think of her. Love Lifts Us Up Where We Belong.
Beautiful song.
He did that excellent. I'm just saying that You Are So Beautiful was not a good song for him.
Wow.
I just don't think that was a good song for him. It's like he missed it by that much.
You are so picky. I am so offended.
Just that one song. Everything else, I love it.
So let me so you just opened up a whole like Pandora's box.
So there went your list, huh?
Well, no, because you created a situation here now. You created like a situation with this Joe Cocker example, and I understand what you're saying. It's just that I get over so okay. We can agree to disagree with Joe Cocker, although I know what you mean about the crackling of the voice and whatnot, but those are live performances. Those aren't the studio versions.
No, that was the studio version of You Are So Beautiful. Yeah, that was on the album. Okay. And it's just that very end. If he wouldn't have tried to hit that high note, because come on, you don't think of Joe Cocker in high notes.
No,
if he wouldn't have tried that high note at the very end, it'd have been just fine.
Okay, so so I see what you're saying. I
Mhm,
just I'm okay with his
mhm.
style,
Oh yeah, I
but
am too.
that said, this is sort of like going back to that our Jimi Hendrix and
Hmm.
Stevie Ray Vaughan thing. But what I was getting at with what I was asking you, in my mind, and this is it's all
Hmm.
applicable, but in my mind, I'll just tell you, I'll think of someone as a singer songwriter
Hmm.
where they can carry it, but
Hmm.
they have their little,
Sure.
issues. And then there's the vocalist,
Hmm.
independent of that within the rock genre,
Hmm.
like this guy from Journey,
Steve
uh,
Perry, yeah,
Steve Perry, let's say,
brilliant voice.
and he could probably go and has, but like I see him as within that
Hmm.
sphere. So you'll have rock as an example, a rock singer that's
Hmm.
just a singer,
Hmm.
and but in that thing, and then you'll have people that are um just what can I say, just full on singers in the pop domain, where you
Hmm.
get those singers that are dressed very popish and
Hmm.
very plasticky, and like okay, like America's Got Talent or whatever those
Yeah.
singing. Okay, to me, that level of singing, in my mind, this is not for everybody, but I'm just saying what I feel about it is not all of them, but in a good majority, the act of just standing there and singing to me is void of there's like the plug was disconnected from a band sitting and grouping together and writing and scratching off lyrics and creating that sort
Hmm.
of like togetherness, that soul. They seem like this plasticky, like look at me, like
Yeah.
to me they're just like glorified Instagram models. So when I see like them judging like that Simon Cowell guy and all
Hmm.
this, and like they're like perfect, and the gleaming
Hmm.
shadows across their faces and the dresses, and I see that whole spectacle before me,
Hmm.
I'm cringing. And I can tell when they have great
Yeah.
voices. I'm just saying that it's like
Well,
it's like a robot being turned on
yeah.
and
And
singing something, but the soul of it is not
that's
there.
to me, to me, that's a separate case altogether. And my wife and I have these discussions. Linda and I were talking about this a couple of days ago too. There are very, very few people have won any of those shows that are doing anything now today that are real popular. There's a couple, but most of them are just kind of where are they now? They just kind of went by the wayside. They had their 15 minutes of fame and it's over. But when you're up there on something like that, you're being judged and you're competing against other people, and you got to hit them hard with everything that you got and show off your vocal range,
Yeah.
your control, all that stuff. So they've got to come out and give them everything they can, because you've got a very short amount of time to impress these people or not.
Yeah. I get
So, to me, that's a little bit different. Would I buy their albums? Probably not. There might be one or two. There was one blues singer a few years back, and I don't even remember his name, but I might buy a couple of his records, but I've never even seen if he's put any out. So I don't know. Of course, then again, I can't remember his name. So that's kind of a
Yeah.
hindrance. But the way I kind of classify vocalists is you have those who are good. I've got no complaints. You have some excellent vocalists. I mean, some just over the top. Harry Nilsson was one. That guy was just over the top. Excellent. Um, and Steve Perry was another one. Believe it or not, Phil Collins, I
Oh
put up there
yeah.
too. He's an excellent vocalist.
But let me, well, go ahead, because I there's something that I just
So, but a lot, the majority of people that I listen to are kind of in the middle. And it just depends on the style of music. BB King has a good blues voice. Stevie Ray Vaughan has a good blues voice. I
yeah
can't sing. I can't hear, Brian Johnson for AC/DC has an excellent metal voice. or hard rock voice, but I can't picture any of those those three trying to sing a real sensitive ballad.
Okay, I see.
You know, so they're excellent in their genre, but as far as being an all-around quote unquote vocalist, that's one of the reasons why I rate Harry Nilsson so high, is because he can do the all fired, fast, get your blood pumping music, and then slow it down and do an excellent job with a ballad too. His vocal range, his control, everything was just at the peak.
That's what I wanted to, when I held myself back from interjecting, and I'm sorry. That's what I thought when you said those names.
Mm.
I do want to put out there, of course, taking an example of Harry Nilsson and Phil Collins. Harry Nilsson, bad to the bone, extreme. However, I mean, bad to the bone, extreme, period. However, I'd like to add this note to it, which is on that very famous song that everybody knows about him, because he's got a whole laundry list of songs that range from all sorts of like old-timey, sort of weird, detached psychedelic to hard rock, a lot of stuff. That song is an example of him, or of the engineers using effects on his voice.
On some of them, yes.
Which basically creates this huge amphitheater sound to his voice, as it's not detracting from the fact that he's a bad to the bone singer. He is, but it is when the listener listens, the effect of his badassness is amplified tenfold because of the production value within the. But if you start with crap, let's say, as far as singing,
right,
you could pull it off that you get something kind of sort of decent with the editing process in a studio. But if you start off with something that's shining, it'll be even that. And that's the case for Harry Nilsson.
Okay.
And for the other dude, Phil Collins, is a magnificent, underappreciated by me, although I owned back in the day. Obviously, he's from the 60s on, but in the 80s, I was buying Phil Collins albums, and not many, but a few. His process is always this sort of short-tailed reverb, where it almost collapses into itself, and I can't describe it well enough. But he's got, if you listen to his songs, he's always got this thing going with his vocals, and you never hear him, generally speaking, with a normal echo or reverb type sound. It's always like this close flat back sort of.
Collins loves his effects, but again, it's like you said, you can't have garbage to start with.
Yeah.
And the ability to, I mean, there was no auto-tune back there. So the ability for guys like Nilsson or Phil Collins or Robert Plant to hit those notes and be there and be able to do that live as well, not just in a studio. I mean, you get Robert Plant, pick any of their Led Zeppelin's live performances, and he wails just as much live as he ever did in any studio.
I saw him live twice.
And so you get what I'm saying. Now you turn around and you put somebody like Bob Dylan, you don't know what you're going to get out of him any given day. You don't know what you're going to get out of him from the start of a song to the end of a song, because he's got about 15 different voices he'll use for 15 different moods.
Yeah.
I mean, you can take something like Lay Lady Lay, which is a damn good song and a damn good vocal performance. Then you back it up with like a Rolling Stone. It's two different voices. It's two different moods. It's two different feelings.
The thing about, okay, so I guess that'll lead us into the worst
vocalists.
This particular list puts Bob Dylan, which you have just mentioned, on the number one of
really?
The roster. Yeah, and
see, I wouldn't have put him at number one.
I mean, So they say, and I'm just reading this off as
Okay.
is, but Bob Dylan is an American singer-songwriter. I guess this is a synopsis of his thing. Who has been an influential figure in pop music and culture for more than 5 decades. And then there's
Mhm.
some quotes of people describing his stuff. One person quotes him as just vomiting. You know, and
It depends on the performance, man. It really does.
yeah. A lot of people some people, I like Bob Dylan, but his voice is atrocious, no tone or technique, and he's wasted it over the years. Having said that, he proves that you don't need a great singer to write great music, which
True.
is the moral of I mean,
Yeah.
even the Beatles, you couldn't put the Beatles on like The Voice or whatever these shows are that do, this singing competition.
Not today,
thing.
no. Well, you might be able to put McCartney in his heyday in there.
Yeah, but not even.
But it depends on what was going on. It depends on what they chose to sing.
Not even if you okay, all things being equal, they were not and are not the remaining two, but they were not singers in the sense of, like, let's say Motown, where you had those ladies busting out some savage,
Yeah.
melodic. But that's not saying that they weren't singers, although I said they weren't singers. They're singer-songwriters with awesome within their genre, like you were hinting at before. So, but in my mind,
Mhm.
they're a different thing apart.
Mhm.
And I value the singer-songwriter with good vocals, but within
Mhm.
higher by leaps and bounds
Mhm.
than I would those people that are just singing there and like, okay, I don't dig it as much.
Yeah.
I don't feel it as much
Mhm.
as a person when I know that a person wrote a song and they recorded it, an instrument, and they created vocal. Well, no, this is my sort of
Yeah,
like
I get
thing.
it.
When I know that, and then they get up and do a thing as opposed to just standing there and singing a thing. Okay, last example for it: Frank Sinatra,
Mhm.
awesome singer. I own his albums and I've loved his music always. My mom loved his music. I would hear her play. I loved it too. But when you watch him on, like, you go to YouTube and watch him, and he's like, he's crooning, right? He's got a great, fantastic voice, but he's kind of like just throwing it at you, like, yeah, and later I'm gonna get drunk anyhow and stuff. He's just the singer, although he's great at creating. He did create beautiful songs and stuff, but the disattachment from it's my personal bias from instrument or the group. It feels I'm not as interested.
It's a cover. These people on The Voice and on America's Got Talent and all that, they're singing covers. They're singing songs that the production company has the rights to, or an arrangement with the copyright holder.
Right.
They're not going to let people do original songs because now the person who wrote the original song, unless if you wrote an original song and you want to perform it there, they want the rights to it, or they want residuals from it, or something like that.
Right.
They don't want to do that. So here's a list of songs. Pick one of these. That's why you keep hearing the same songs over and over and over again.
It's horrible
because it's safe for the production company.
Jim Dockrell said, "Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. I hear you."
Well, you saw what he wrote, right? He said Van Morrison is better than Morrison, and it's
Jim
funny.
Morrison. Yeah, I would agree.
The funny thing about that
Mhm.
is that Van Morrison, awesome, right? Let's not even, like, I love to listen to, and I
Some of his stuff.
I love the acoustic mashup and then horns coming in and like a whole, and then him like sort of like vamping off of that, sort of like scat a little bit, because he'll say some words and they'll just become like groans and stuff.
That's what I mean.
He does it well. So he does have that going for him. And by the way, all these people are freaking fantastic that we've mentioned, from the crappiest to the, but since we have to talk about something in life, we might as well. Jim Morrison, a lot of people don't like him, but a lot of people do. And he's the sort of guy that, along with his singing, he had the lyrics as the foundation and the band, and they were so awkward. I freaking love to. I used to put those headphones on and let the freaking cassette go and listen to, and it was magic because it's so raw and weird. I can't tell you. I could not compare the two.
Is Jim Morrison on the list?
I haven't looked because we've been talking about all this.
Because he should be.
Oh, great.
I rate Jim Morrison with the same place I rate Bob Dylan, in that I don't think they're the worst. It's just you didn't know what kind of performance you were going to get out of Morrison. Morrison was Jim Morrison, not Van. Van's, I'll get to him in a minute. But Jim Morrison is one of those guys that you didn't know what kind of performance you were going to get out of him. You had something like Roadhouse Blues. Dynamite, perfect. One of my favorites. I listen to Roadhouse Blues a lot. Other tunes, the passion's there, the dedication to the song is there, the power is there. It's just I wish he was a little bit better of a singer. He's just missing it. You know, certain notes he doesn't get right. The song sounds good, but it could be so much better if he was just a slightly better vocalist.
See, I don't see it that way at all.
And Van Morrison, if you could understand what he was saying, that would be a bonus.
That's see, I can agree. see here. That's where our paths reunite down the road. I'm with you on that, but I think that that's such a common thing to say about, because it's so true. That he says things.
You take the song, take the song Domino. I'm willing to bet you right now that you line up 100 people and you play the song Domino. The only words to that song they can understand is "Oh Domino," and after that they have no clue, because I have no clue. And I've been listening to the guy for 40 years. But Brown Eyed Girl, excellent tune.
Yeah.
I've got it on a couple of playlists. Excellent tune. I just wish he wasn't so much mouthed. It's just, come on, man, you're better than this.
No, but I think
definitely better than this.
No, but you see, but here's the thing though about both of these guys. I am convinced and confident that it's not that they're not aware of what they're doing. No, I think that they're totally within the scope of, like, they know that they're doing what they're doing, and that what they're doing is what they want to do. So Van Morrison says, "This is my style," and boy, do you like how I flow that? And then you hear a little word, but it keeps going, and then
that's his thing, and that's his gift, and he's cashed in off of it. But it's like, dude, it would be even better if we knew what you were saying.
Well, I'll say one last thing about this, and then I'll go to the list, because we haven't even looked at except Bob Dylan. Just to save a little bit of face for the Doors, and it's not going to convince anybody, but just for my sake, I guess, at the end of the day, they are so awkwardly strange with a list of songs with very just awkwardly just weird and dark lyrics, apocalyptic sort of lyrics and stuff, and so and then it's played over this blues and rock that's not of it's almost like it's not even of the time of they were so weird that they were even outside of what the 60s. There's a song, there's an album called The Soft Parade that is so, for me, I love it, but it's so, I could see how people could see it as corny from beginning to end, because it's got the organ, the cheesy, like, afternoon sitcom 1970s Three's Company sort of like music soundtrack to it. Very weird stuff, dude. And I love the stuff, but you have to be, I guess, into that.
My criticism of Jim Morrison is based on the fact, not so much that the guy can't hit the note, he just can't hold the note. If he has to hold a note for more than a couple of beats, you can hear his voice wavering and cracking. He can't hold the note. He doesn't have vocal control. He's got range, but not control. And that's my criticism. And it's just like, damn, I wish he was, if he was just a little bit better at singing. I mean, they were explosive as they were. They would have gone 100% nuclear if he was better, if he had better control of his voice, is all I'm getting at.
I'll say this one last thing about the matter, and I've never said this, and I think that it'll be interesting to say. When I was in school, in high school, at the beginning, I went into class and I took a poetry class. Or no, I took a creative writing class. And because I liked all the arts I always have and stuff, although you know, the writing part is always been less of a thing, but whatever. So I walked in and there was this guy sitting in the corner with a little radio Walkman type thing with speakers, you know, just a little stereo thing before the class got started, and he was playing a song and a cassette, and it was like a guy wailing, and like his voice, he sounded like a hot mess beginning to end. I was a rock and roll Motley Crue, you know, Metallica. That's what I was listening to at that time. Tesla is what I was listening to. I was listening to Anthrax, those bands. I was of that time. But I'm hearing this freaking cassette from this guy with long hair, and I walk it up and I said, dude, what's that? And he's like, oh man, that's the Doors. That's Jim Morrison. I said, dude, I had never heard of him. I said, dude, that guy sounds like he's drunk. And they started cracking up, and a bunch of kids were cracking up as well. But this guy
probably was.
and yeah, he probably was. And well, yeah, I was.
Jim Morrison was out of his mind, man. That's all there is to it.
Well, get this. So I told him, dude, that guy sounds like he's drunk, dude. You know, and he's like, no, man, this is good stuff. But he didn't pay any attention to my criticism and stuff. A year later, I was wearing frickin' boots and listening to the Doors and buying books on the Doors because I that moment. And this is a big thing about influence from people. You don't know that a little thing, interaction with someone, can spark in another human being. Oh, yeah. And I, just like Sylvester Stallone, walking down in a rainy day in New York to the bottom basement and reading for the first time Edgar Allan Poe, and then he has a lifelong, you know, invested project to create a movie based on his life. And you can catch that on one of our episodes if you go to the Wayback Machine on Trampled Underfoot podcast.com. So I was totally into it, reading the books and all that. Influenced. You know, I started listening to the music because I said, that's so freaking weird. And then I saw a cassette. I bought it because I was sick that way. You know, I wanted the
I'm just amazed you hadn't heard something like Light My Fire or...
Not in the 80s.
Yeah.
No.
I was hearing it.
No, Bon Jovi, Ozzy Osbourne.
Well, okay, I don't know how much or what radio stations you were listening to or what their platform was. So, you know, I don't know if they were all hair metal stations or what.
No, I was into the other stuff too, because I would play 102.7, which was I forget now. 102.7 was something. It was called something. Well, anyway. And they had the oldies, and I would play and I'd record. So I did have a like of that, but I had never heard a guy that sounded like he was basically being recorded at the side of like a sidewalk while he's puking.
Yeah. So you just bolstered my case for why Jim Morrison is on my list of vocalists.
Well, I mean, but see, that was, but my perception.
I do like the band.
My perception changed.
Because you know,
oh, go ahead.
But like I said, you get something like Light My Fire, you get something like LA Woman, Roadhouse Blues, and The fast, powerful songs, he was excellent at. It's just when he tried to hold a note
I don't have an issue with it.
that it wavered and cracked, and it was just like you just keep missing it that much, you know.
oh, dude, it's like, well, let's see. I just
Get into the list.
yeah, we'll do that.
See who else I can cheese you off about.
Well, I'm not. You're not gonna. If you do have any objections to the next one, I'm not gonna have a problem with it because I'm not a particular fan. Although I have owned a couple of this guy's albums.
Go ahead.
We are talking about David Bowie.
Yeah, a little. I'm gonna cheese off a few people here and say a little Bowie goes a long way with me.
Yeah.
You know, some of the stuff I liked. I'm probably one of like 3 people in the world that actually liked the song Let's Dance. I liked Fame. I liked believe it or not, Space Oddity. I liked Golden Years, a few others, but I never really got super heavy into it. I mean, he had a voice. He could sing when he wanted to sing. I don't know if you've ever seen his duet with oh my God, the little drummer boy, the Christmas Carol.
Yeah.
I want to
Bing
Crosby. Yes.
Yeah.
They were fabulous together. He's got a good voice. It just wasn't my style of music.
No, there was something boxy.
You know?
See, and it's easy to criticize other people, and it really is not fair. But again, we have to talk about something, so we might as well. And I guess they'll get over it. But there was something about his voice that sounded like he never went over to, like that release. He always kept it within this tone. Generally speaking, there was something weird. I don't know.
He had a limited range, and he knew his limits, and he didn't try to push him, for sure. But he had a good voice for a certain style of music.
Okay. Well, here's the next one. And this is not our list. This is a list that I'm drawing from and seeing what Mark, says. And by the way, I'm sorry, but, Jim Dockrell said Eloy was grooving to the Backstreet Boys. And I got to tell you, those boy bands that came out at that time were there was a rage inside. There was an anger towards that from the heavy metal people. And it's not like we were organized as heavy metal. You just knew another metal guy when you walked down the street, and you may never have known him, but you probably knew him because that he was metal because of his shirt. But there was an unspoken dark rule, and I'm telling you, and it was something real. And there might have been some marijuana involved in the culture of that. Not by me, but so the thing about it is that Backstreet Boys, that kind of stuff, really teed us off. And guess what? The mass majority of people were like going oogle over them, and metal wasn't getting the attention that, although they did, but yeah.
Now I want you to take everything you just said right there.
Yeah.
Take out the words metal, put in progressive rock.
Yeah.
Take out Backstreet Boys.
I know what you're going to say.
And put in the word disco.
I knew it.
That's exactly what was going on in the 70s. 100%.
That's hilarious, dude. That's hilarious, dude. Are you serious? It makes sense.
100%. We're sitting here listening to Floyd, or we're listening to King Crimson, or we're listening to Emerson, Lake and Palmer. And all of a sudden, here comes Casey and the Sunshine Band. And it's like, what?
Put your dancing
Are you
shoes on.
Serious right now?
Put your dancing shoes off. Let's
turn
go
the
to
channel now.
Chinatown.
Yeah, whatever. Oh my God. Anyway, okay, what's next on the list?
That's hilarious. Next up, we have Rod Stewart.
See, now I disagree with that.
Okay.
I like that husky voice. He sounds like he's had, bronchitis for 40 years, 50, maybe
Yeah.
60 by now. But I like that. I like his voices. I like voices. No, it's all the same voice. I think a couple of the original Maggie May, not the one he did a little bit later on that's making the rounds around YouTube now where he's singing it live. Maggie May, excellent. I like his songs with faces, you know, Stay With Me. I like his voice. I wouldn't put him up there with the worst vocalists at all.
I'm going to have to agree with you.
Mm-hmm.
I understand what people mean, because it could be nails on the chalkboard for some, and for others it can go down like a nice, with but Rod Stewart does have that scratch to his voice, and it's part of his gig. It's his thing, and I kind of like it. Now, I don't go out of my way to listen to his stuff, but I have no issue with it.
His older stuff I like. I mean, he went through that disco phase too, and he kind of eventually ended up going the same, sort of the same path that Chicago did after Terry Kath, the guitarist, died. He kind of started getting into the love songs and the pop stuff, and he flirted with disco a little bit, but he started going a little bit more soft rock side.
Yeah,
I liked the old stuff with Faces, and when he first went solo, the older stuff.
Yeah, I'm with you, dude. But I can see where people would have a problem. I mean, can't you, with the
oh sure
scratch?
I mean, he's got one of those voices, you either like it or you don't. It's
exactly.
It's like Howlin' Wolf. I mean, you either like him or you don't.
Which I like Howling Wolf. All of them. John Lee Hooker. You could argue John Lee Hooker.
He didn't
really. Well, go ahead.
He didn't so much sing as he spoke.
Exactly. However, heck yeah.
Yeah, but it worked.
It just
for that style of music, he had a good voice for it. Yeah,
dude, boy, that's freaking awesome.
Could you imagine him and Joe Cocker doing the "You Are So Beautiful" duet?
Yeah,
neither can I.
All right, so I'm going to hit you with the next one, and well, here it is, Bono from U2.
I think he has a good enough voice. I really do. There are certain U2 songs that I really dig the heck out of.
Okay.
I even actually liked I should know the name of the album because it's the same as the song. That Vertigo album that they gave everybody who had an iPhone and just kind of shoved it off on people.
Yeah.
Which was the first thing that most folks deleted and never listened to. The title song from that album, Vertigo, was actually, I liked it. I liked it a lot. I've still got it on a couple of playlists here. My problem with Bono was 100% personality and him believing his own hype.
I'm with you. I'm with you on every point you just said.
He's got a good enough voice. It wasn't really my style of music. There's a few tunes of theirs that I really like, but most of it is just pretentious pile to me. But some of it I really did like. I
mean, you can't get away. See, I don't want to. So okay, I'll put that to the side. Because I had a thought when you just. To me, the album that's like the milestone of theirs, and I'm with you 100% with personality. Too much.
Yeah.
It's too political. It's too. I mean, I don't want to know. What I want to know is musical. Well, Octoon Baby, to me, should be considered a classic album if it's not already. Every song on a production level from start to finish is, in my opinion, a masterpiece. As a whole, it's an album, in my opinion, to be listened to. Yeah. I have no problem with U2 music-wise. The pretentious thing, I was going to give you pushback on, but it's kind of like you're right.
He believed his own hype.
Yeah. And because I was going to argue, I was going to tell you, well, you know what? What I was going to say is that, well, you know what, Mark? It is true, the pretentious, but within the the sphere of art, you got nowhere to go but to kind of sort of fall within the line of because you're actually, you know what, you're delving into your thoughts and making it
Understood.
public.
Understood. And that's great for writing music and that's great for performing music. But when you step away from the microphone and that is your personality,
Yeah,
when you are that pretentious person in real life, then it's just like, I ain't got time for you. You did a couple of good songs and I'll listen to those good songs, but I'm not going to your concert.
yeah,
You
yeah.
know,
I've never, and I was invited or offered because groups would be going, and I turned it down every time.
yeah.
But when Metallica, I'd be
Well,
like
sure.
finding any way to get those tickets.
Hmm.
I mean, um, so the next one is Geddy Lee, bass player for Rush.
I disagree wholeheartedly. I think he has a fabulous voice.
Okay.
I really do. I think he has a fabulous voice.
Okay, and I'm gonna agree with you. It's rare that a high pitched,
Hmm.
extremely high pitched way of singing goes down smooth with me, but in Geddy Lee's, I just dig it. I
Hmm.
dig his vocal style. I dig it.
Hmm.
So I'm with you on that one.
Hmm.
Here's the next one. Let me see what you say about this. Lou Reed.
I haven't listened to much of Lou Reed. Um, no, wait a minute. Who am I confusing Lou Reed with? Throw a couple Lou Reed tunes at me. He
Uh,
was lead singer
doop,
for,
doop, 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 doop.
yeah, that was,
Satellite of love, satellite. And then there's take a walk on the wild side.
Take a Walk on the Wild Side. He's mainly speaking as well. Um, I don't know that I'd call him a bad vocalist. Like I said, I'm very, very limited on Lou Reed songs. Take a Walk on the Wild Side was okay. He didn't really sing; he spoke
Yeah,
mainly.
yeah.
I don't really have an opinion on him one way or the other. I mean,
Okay,
I haven't really exposed myself to much of his stuff.
all right. Well, here we go with this one.
I got him confused with Lou Graham. That's what it was. I was thinking, wasn't he the lead singer for somebody else? No, that was Lou Graham. Never mind. Shut up.
Well, how about Bruce Springsteen?
Never saw the hype. Born to Run was a good song. Um, he's a good songwriter. He's a very good songwriter. But I never saw the hype. I never, okay,
Yeah.
fine.
Now,
I certain songs he has a good voice for, just not my style.
so I'm kind of with you on that. However, in my opinion, and by the way, he's got some great freaking albums. But putting that to the side, I think that the Bruce Springsteen situation, which I call it in my head, because it's a
Well,
situation.
well, he is from Jersey, so
There's a situation going on, musically. And by the way, he's freaking brilliant, right? So let's put that to the side. But we have to do some
we're,
sort of critical thinking here.
we're talking strictly as a vocalist.
Well, here's what I'm getting at. I think that his album Born in the USA, which was a mammoth album.
Yeah.
If I think, okay, I'll just go to the point. If you consider it and how it sounded, and you listen to the outtakes or it done acoustically,
Mhm.
it's two different albums, and it was going in a darker direction when it was being written, but it was created into a pop thing. I think that his albums from the 80s suffered from this production style that turned a darker, grittier track or tracks into this more energetic thing. And I know why they did it, because it was successful.
Mhm.
But he did write things a little bit more dark, and you would be amazed if you've never heard his Born in the USA acoustic,
Nope, not heard.
or outtake takes or something. I'll have to look for the actual, but if you listen to it that way, you'll say, holy smokes,
Mhm.
bad to, it's sort of like sitting in a truck down the highway at night while it's raining, and you're listening to, it's just a great, so yeah, so I think that his stuff suffered because of that, but vocally he's got a weird sort of over the top rough
I can
sort of
take him
sound.
or leave him. You know, there's a couple of tunes that I like, but I wasn't really much for most of what he did. Just my opinion.
Okay, yeah, well, I'm
He's
kind of
he's a
with
good songwriter. I just don't think he lives up to his songwriting.
you. See,
His performance doesn't live up to the songwriting. I
so
think he can write great music for other people.
I think it's an issue of
Mhm.
production value, or not production value, but production decisions, especially in the 80s. That
Yep.
album could have been another type of album, which I
Well,
probably would have preferred, but the
true.
public would
But
not have liked probably.
if you look, you can go on YouTube and find his live performances and everything else, and he sounds. It just
Yeah,
doesn't.
I,
It's just not something I like. You know.
I'm with you. I'm just thinking in terms of the songwriting. So if they would have gone with a darker, Born in the USA tracks, if you
Mhm.
ever listen to those, I guess they're either practice tracks or out. It really is, I mean, I have some sort of background to be able to say that there's interesting stuff in there, whether you might like it or not. But it's the right sort of vibe, and they
Mhm.
missed it, in my opinion, on the album. But it's a world famous album anyhow.
Yeah.
So I think that it's to do with all those things. But yeah, vocally, it's kind of
Yeah.
weird, his vocals. So, um, I mean, I've only owned like 2 albums of his ever.
I've never owned one.
Well, see, that gives you 10 points. Um, so we'll go to Sinead O'Connor.
Never saw the hype. I heard her "Nothing Compares to You" on the radio
Mm-hmm.
back when it was popular, and it was one of those songs. I mean, I give everybody a chance, but by the second verse, I was searching for something else. I was pushing the button, and when I heard it was coming on, I started searching for something else. Just nah, not for me. No thanks.
Axl Rose.
No thanks. He's
At
another
all?
one that you never knew what you were going to get. He believed his hype as well, and just I thought he was overrated. Yeah, I'm gonna cheese you off and said I thought the band Guns N' Roses was overrated, but
Not
it
at
was
all.
beyond my generation. I
Dude.
wasn't into hair metal at all. I was into progressive rock and blues then, and I really didn't care about Axl Rod or the rest of them.
Dude.
and
Dude.
and my daughter fought me tooth and nail over that. She was trying to get me into the spaghetti incident and all. She was trying her best to get me into this. Listen to this, it's called November Rain, it's excellent. And I'm like, yeah.
I can't tell you enough how monumental it on a just on over the stratosphere monumental that Guns N' Roses was, um on an actual songwriting level. Not because, how could I put it? It's not because we're thinking in terms of Dylan, where there's depth in certain ways, but we're talking um, out of the punk era and meshing with this metal. They created if you put headphones on and you listen to their first album, Appetite for Destruction, you're gonna hear Stradlin on one earphone and Slash on the other, counterplaying with each other, and you can clearly delineate the guitars playing off. And it's not like cheap throwaway stuff. It's like rhythmic creations on one and the other. And
Okay.
Axl does have a sort of like laissez-faire, sort of like toss it to the wind, sort of like vocal screeching.
But if you don't like that, you don't leave it on that station and you push the button and go on to something you do like.
Yeah. Oh
You
yeah,
know?
yeah. I'm making. Look,
You can be the absolute best guitarist in the world, but if the singer in the band sucks, I'm changing the channel.
well, okay, so Axel actually, I can't even tell you what I was about to tell you because it would have been a freaking lie. Uh, I swear, I'm trying to defend him so much. I was gonna tell you that he could sing with a regular voice, and I almost suspect he can, but that's just his gig.
Well, and I get that. There are some metal singers who are. Have you ever heard? Oh my God, I don't believe I'm drawing a blank on his last name. His first name is Dave. He sings for. Oh God, and I just blanked on the name of the band. They did a cover of Simon and Garfunkel's. Oh God, I'm blanking like crazy.
Something of silence.
Sounds of Silence.
Yeah.
And it was the only band that's coming into my brain is Suicidal Tendencies, and that is not them.
No, that's from the 80s.
Yes. Oh my God, they're super popular now. Down with the Sickness. Oh my God. Chat room, help me. YouTube chat, help me out here.
Yeah, he's the guy with the deep voice.
Dave Distrain. He has a killer voice when he sings straight. Disturbed. Thank you, Steve Nealon at Harneal Media. That's why he gets the big money. Yes. Disturbed. That man has got a voice, but he was classically trained. He trained from a young child. As a young child, he's Jewish. He trained to be a cantor for his temple. Then went on further in music. The guy has a voice. I mean, he's got good vocal range. He's got excellent vocal control. And when he toned it down and sang The Sound of Silence, chills, man. Chills.
Okay, I'm going to probably tee you off and Steve, because Steve shared that. And by the way, Steve would send me every now and again, if he's caught, some sort of music video and this and that of interest, and he'll send me. And he sends me a few. So, and he sent me that one. But he sent me one of like these, I guess they'd be within the YouTube sphere as far as heavy metal. They do it themselves. They go to parks and they film themselves singing. Bad to the freaking bone. You could tell that this is a DIY group. And I'm just going to tell you this. And the guy's clean cut, but he's singing metal. And there's a vibe that's coming from them. And they're not quite, they don't have the production all the way, but they're badass, right? And like, I could feel a connection. That guy from Disturbed, it's too polished for me. The voice is too it's too deep, and it reminds me of that band, the Crash Test Dummies from the 90s.
Well, now there are two extremely popular versions, videos for that song. Which one did Steve send you?
He sends me one where it's him, and I don't know if there was rain, but there was darkness around, and he's singing, and he comes up, and there's like a little bit of, it's kind of like a...
Okay, so that was the music video. Of course it's polished. That's a music video.
No, but not visually. His vocals specifically, I don't dig that, unless it's Johnny Cash or some other person. I don't dig that sort of down low sing.
That was only the first verse. You didn't catch the octave change where he came way up. Like the second verse. Oh man,
I'm just saying.
I thought it was fabulous.
And I'm also biased about it because to me, I like Simon and Garfunkel. And
there's always going to be some of that, but I didn't like Ugly Kid Joe remaking Cats in the Cradle either. So,
and you know what? And I get that. And I love, and see, here's the problem. I bought that Ugly Kid Joe album and I played it, man. It was awesome, dude. I hate everything. And I hate the rain and sunny weather. And then the whole thing. I loved that album. And that song, I liked it too, but not as much as the other tracks. But I totally get it.
Okay.
It's a personal taste thing,
Mhm.
and I didn't mean to shoot down Disturbed. I do
Mhm.
want to, because
Well, that's the only tune of theirs, I'll be honest with you, other than Down with the Sickness that I've listened to. I don't own any other albums. I just thought he did an excellent job to kind of prove a point that you can take a metal singer and put them into another genre. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I just think that Dave did an excellent job on that one.
let's
So,
switch gears real quick because I
okay.
want to throw this in because we're rounding home, and I want to
Yeah.
say this: these are extra bonus. Did you know that Led Zeppelin came up with the title Black Dog? How did they come up with it? Do you know?
No, I don't. I've not heard this. Go ahead.
After a large black Labrador walked into their studio, and they named the song Black, and that's how they came up with the title for the song they were playing.
Sometimes that's all it takes. Sometimes that's all it takes. You've heard of the band The Guess Who, of course.
Yes, of course.
Okay, Burton Cummings, Randy Bachman.
Yeah.
One of their bigger hits was No Sugar Tonight / New Mother Nature. And Randy Bachman, they got No Sugar Tonight
In my
from,
coffee.
yes, he was walking down the street and there's a couple of bikers come out of this bar and this woman pulled up in a car and just starts screaming up one side and down the other at one of these bikers. I mean, just chewing him up one side and down. It just tore him apart. And she goes to get back in their car, and he's Bachman's just kind of standing there watching what's going on, kind of stunned. And she goes back to get in her car, and she throws open the door, and she's standing there. She looks over the roof, and she says, "Oh, and by the way, no sugar tonight."
Oh, that's awesome.
And jumps in and slams the door and drives off.
Dude,
and
that is brilliant.
And that stuck with him. You know, no sugar tonight. Meanwhile, back at the ranch, Burton Cummings, the lead singer, is coming up with a song of his own that's unfinished called New Mother Nature. And they were in a hurry to get an album out, so they just kind of slowed them both. They slowed one down, sped the other one up a little bit, put them together with with an acoustic bridge in between, and that was the metamorphosis of that song.
Brilliant, dude.
And it's one of my favorite Guess Who songs, but I only found out the story about where Randy Bachman come up with No Sugar Tonight.
Dude, that is awesome, dude.
About 2-3 years ago. And I've been listening to the Guess Who since, oh God, since Wheatfield Soul. Way back in the 60s.
Because you know what it is, that had to hurt him as much as it did the guy that he had to feel, for him to write a song, he had to feel it as deeply when she said no sugar tonight, you son of a gun.
Well, the probably the king of coming up with weird song titles is Jimmy Buffett. He comes up with some obvious, you wonder where the heck he gets his inspiration for some of these. Like he has songs, The Last Mango in Paris.
Dude, he's awesome, dude.
I heard I was in town. Yeah. I think my favorite one was If the Phone Doesn't Ring, It's Me. And he read that on the bathroom wall in some bar somewhere.
That's freaking
probably St. Bart's, but he comes up with some off the wall stuff. I don't know. I dig his stuff too.
Yeah, I really do too. Yeah.
But
all right.
But Black Dog, no, I didn't. I'd never heard that story.
Yeah, I thought I'd throw in a little bonus round there, and I do want to take exception to a few people out there hating on Guns N' Roses. Snow Crusher. Come on, dude. But it's like, come on.
Greg and Jim Dockrell are both Canadian, and they love it anytime I mention a Canadian band. But I have to say that growing up, from the time I was probably, about 7 years old, 8 years old, because I don't remember when Share the Land came out. I don't remember if that was 68, 69, 70. I really don't remember the timeline.
That's a great song, by the way.
It's a fantastic album, too. It's one of my favorite albums of theirs. But my dad brought home that album, and I wore it out with the headphones on and went back and got the road stuff. and then started following them after that. And it really cheesed me off when they broke up in like 76, 77, something like that. And Burton Cummings went on solo. Randy Bachman left and, joined up with CF Turner, and Bachman Turner Overdrive was born. Another good group that was very underrated. But
there's a lot of them out there. John Wood, if I could, says, I like the story behind Smoke on the Water. And we know that one, don't we, Mark?
Oh, yeah.
It's great because Frank Zappa and the mother. Well, he tells the story in the song.
Yeah. So, the story is there.
So if you haven't heard that one, folks, go ahead and check it out on YouTube.
That's it. Okay, well, was that it for your list? I mean, is there anybody else to debate? Or was that basically?
Dude, it's a laundry list. I'll tell you. I think that we've. What you want to go for more?
It's entirely up to you. I mean, you're the one you're 3 hours ahead of me. It's not even 8 o'clock in the evening here. Well,
I'll throw you a curveball, another curveball. How about that?
Okay.
And see what you think. Angelina Jolie's uncle.
Okay.
Chip Taylor was the songwriter for Wild Thing. Just one of those odd little.
Chip Taylor.
Yeah, I don't know.
I've not heard that. Of course, I remember Wild Thing, but which version do you remember of Wild Thing? Because Jimi Hendrix did it.
Oh, I remember the original version,
and I believe the Troggs, who was the
Troggs.
Original. Yeah,
the Troggs. I remember, and by the way, the Troggs, their album, there's like I guess the best of that goes like for volumes, I think it is. And I had a friend that bought it and loaned it to me, and it just kept going with savagery. It was savage, back to back, barbaric rock and roll.
Yeah,
it was like, holy smokes, these people.
Yeah.
I mean, just for a young mind, right? To be exposed to all this stuff. I mean, come on. You're a kid in Sweetwater.
Yeah.
Going to Catholic school. And then a friend in his, like, he pulls out like Ozzy Osbourne, like dressed as a wolf on the cover with like, this neon sign saying "Bark at the Moon." And then here, you could go ahead and take this home, and you like put it on, and you're like, I mean, how can you beat that as a kid in the 80s listening to that?
In the 80s, you really can't. But let me throw this at you. Try going from a rather pastoral upbringing in Southern Oregon. It was at that time, it was all agricultural and cattle and timber industry. Country bumpkin, it was dripping off of me. At age 5, moving to the San Francisco Bay Area and living through the Summer of Love, growing up through the Berkeley riots, the anti-war protest, down the street I lived on, watching through the front window, my mother paranoid somebody was going to throw something through the window and I was going to get cut.
That's awesome.
And the turbulence of Haight-Ashbury and the free love and all of the music coming out of San Francisco at the time, Jefferson Airplane and Quicksilver Messenger Service. And I mean, just, God, you name it. It was happening all around me. Creedence Clearwater Revival. Everybody thinks they're from down in Louisiana in the swamp because of the style of music they played. They were from Oakland, California. They were all Bay Area kids,
It's such a beautiful thing that happened, though, on a musical level, putting it to the side all the political strife and that. But the like what you just said actually gave me chills, to be honest with you, because it's a very special thing, even for me. I know that I'm detached from California, let's say, from your decade, let's say, as far removed as can be. I mean, maybe as far removed would be like freaking Bangkok in like 1999, but it just within reason, and yet it affected me and my interests. Obviously, you have a little bit of guilt in it, you and your interests as yourself, but it even affected me. I think it's just a special occurrence musically. frankly.
With me, it was 100% curiosity, because I went from such a, I won't say protected upbringing or structured or anything like that, but you are a product of your environment, and you only know what you've experienced, especially when you're 5, 6, 7, 8 years old. You only know what you've seen. And we look back at movies like Woodstock, or we see clips from back in the 60s. You see hippies. Well, those people were my next door neighbors. They dressed like that. And I've said it before, and I'll say it again. The dumbest thing about the 60s and 70s was the way we dressed. But the granny dresses and the psychedelic paint and the face paint with hearts in here, and the long hair and the long bushy beards, and the beads and the patchouli oil and all that other stuff. That was my neighbors. Those were the parents of the kids I played with, So it was strange to go from a crew cut and a button-up shirt, if you go outside, to seeing all of this going on. And it was a time of curiosity. What makes this cool? Why is this so cool? My mother was just absolutely scandalized one time when my next door neighbor, she's about 17, 18, she come outside in a peasant blouse and no bra on. She made me go in the house. I didn't know what I was looking at.
Yeah.
But she made me go in the house, because it was like, holy cow, you don't do that. I mean, this my boy is only 5 years old and everything. I don't know what I was looking at. You couldn't see anything anyway.
Well, so you didn't try hard enough.
Well, I was 5,
That's no excuse, man.
So, but it was just strange. It was culture shock is what I was getting at. And then to grow up during all of that, it was just wild, weird.
My father, just my reference point with anytime I had mentioned it in the past for whatever reason, said, "Oh yeah, I remember the hippies. They were all a bunch of dirty kids that used to sit on the lawn." That's exactly his thing. That you'd see them sitting at Bayfront Park in Miami, just sitting across. He says they were a bunch of dirty people.
Never mind the fact that they probably bathed 3 times a day, but that was the way. I can remember watching the Red Skelton show, and he had these 2 characters, 2 seagulls, Gertrude and Heathcliff, and he would just stick his thumb underneath his arm and just flap his arms like this, like wings. And he put on a couple of voices. You had Gertrude and Heathcliff, 2 different seagulls. And they always told a joke back and forth to one another. And I don't remember which one it was. He's standing up on stage doing this stuff. And he says, "What weighs 2,000 pounds and stinks?" And the other one says, "I don't know." He says, "A hippopotamus." It was the nationwide joke. But they were just people like we were,
That's hilarious. Well, yeah, and this is a whole other discussion stuff, but
sure.
I'll just say, screw it. I'll just say to you that, screw it, right? Like, just pedal to the metal, like forward. The whole thing about the hippies, in a sense, is that they were trying to in my opinion, not just advance certain things, but trying to wipe the slates clean, society level, and reinvent the wheel that needed to be reinvented anyhow.
It was 100% total rebellion against everything. Don't trust anyone over 30.
Yeah.
Don't trust the establishment. It was rebelling against everything. That's why the long hair. That's why the beard. That's why the outlandish clothes.
Dude,
that's why not get a job, walk around barefoot, peace.
Yeah.
It was anti everything. If somebody in position of authority said it, it had to be wrong. We're going to do the opposite.
Frank Zappa has some very interesting interviews on the subject, on many subjects. Mm-hmm. If you've listened to Frank Zappa and you've thought to yourself that the music is kind of like out there and kooky, it's true. But it's not without thought being put into it. You may think that that's not even something that would be of value. A lot of people disregard Zappa, but he's a very intelligent guy, was a very intelligent guy. Mm-hmm. And he was asked about the hippie and all that. And he always disassociated himself from that. He was not a drug user. Mm-hmm. and he was really into creating music and moods and
Mhm.
soundscapes, and he did have, out a little. He was more psychedelic in many ways than people that were on these drugs.
Well, Zappa was a composer, and to me, there's a big difference between a songwriter and a composer. A songwriter can write a song. Zappa wrote a mood. He composed. He put things together, and almost everything he did had a theme to it. It had a message, maybe, and yeah, he did go out there, but he went out there with a purpose, and he always made it work.
It's
You
just
know.
amazing. But he did criticize. He said that those hippies that were looking for this social change, they became, in the 80s, they became yuppies and full of excess, and then occupied the seats of power and such. And he goes into, like, he's got some very interesting interviews that are really enlightening, and it shows his thinking. It's just incredible stuff. But he did have criticism towards the hippies of the time. He didn't necessarily consider himself part of the thing. More so,
Well, he wasn't a hippie,
yeah, he was more
not at
so
all.
a composer, musician, and
Mhm.
so on. Um, so yeah.
Yep.
Well, I mean, I think that. Do you
Well,
have anything else for us? Because I think we're good.
no, I think that more than covers it. I think that
Because I'm thinking in terms of you editing. I'm like, well, we're at an hour 26.
well, I can cut it down. That's not a problem. There's a few things that I can get rid of that I said
Don't cut out the good
repeated
stuff.
myself. I never do. I never cut out the good stuff. Okay. Well, thank you everybody hanging out over there in the chat. We appreciate everybody that showed up. Snow Crusher, Jim Dockrell, Frankie CNC, my lovely bride Linda Lindsay. Yeah. John C. What if I could? New to us. Thanks for finding us. Thanks for sticking with us as long as you did. I know Mervyn Schumacher was over there, Poppy's Woodshed, and our normal cast with Mr. Steve Nealon, webmaster, web designer to the stars. Thank you everybody for hanging out with us. Hope you come back next week. We're here every week, same bat time, same bat channel. That'll get edited out so we don't get a copyright strike.
Peace, guys. Thanks for hanging out.
Take care, y'all. Have a good night.